My name is Shannon, and I am coming to you from northern New Jersey. You can find me as Whiskey and Wool on Ravelry and on Instagram. I'm probably most active posting knitting things on Ravelry, surprisingly. I haven't been into Instagram lately. It's really hard. I don't understand all the crap. It's very distracting. I don't know. It's all right. I'll probably keep using it. I'll keep using it, but I don't like it. Here on the East Coast, whenever they get hurricanes down in Florida, it pushes all the warm air up here, and we get 60-degree Fahrenheit weather. And as hurricane gets worse and worse for them, that means we get more and more mild temperatures up here, but it's all about to go away, and it's going to be cold next week. We'll see. I normally start each episode with a whiskey chat or a gin chat. I've been doing them for a couple years now, and instead of doing that, I'm a little under the weather, so I'm gonna just not drink later today. Instead, what I'm gonna do with you is show you my advents, my whiskey and gin advents that I purchased from the Spirit Company, because I thought maybe a couple of you might want to do a little taste along. This is the whiskey advent I got. It's called the Whiskey Advent Calendar Explorers Edition by Drinks by the Dram. I think you can buy directly from them too, but I buy from the Spirit Company because they export no problem. I think this is made in the UK. I'm not positive though. UK viewers, you have a lot of options when it comes to alcohol advents. Here in the US, not so much for us. My gin advent. This is my first time getting a gin advent. I think this is my fourth whiskey advent. My gin advent is Great British Gin, the Spirit Company's version of it. I'm excited to try this. One of the lovely things about UK or Great Britain gin is that country, unlike every other country, does not regulate what goes into gin. So in the UK, they have very strict rules about what you can call gin. I don't know of that existing anywhere else. Maybe Australia, I'm not sure. There are rules about whiskey in Scotland, for sure. So I thought that would be fun because I really, really love small niche companies that, small batch, and stuff like that. So both of these are supposed to have lots of small batch makers in them, like that would be very expensive to buy full bottles, but you're just getting a little taste. You're getting like 30 milligrams, so basically a 1 ounce shot, each day, and I'll end up saving most of them to taste with you all here on the channel. So, yeah, I look forward to sharing those with you. I really, really can't wait to start opening those. I have another 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. I'm having a seltzer with a splash of OJ for flavor to get my fluids going. I got my booster shot, my fifth COVID shot. I got the booster that has that covers the latest variants, and yeah, it really put me under the weather, like really bad. Yesterday, I got it on Thursday night, and this is Saturday. So yesterday, Friday, I was wiped out, just so exhausted, and I woke up today feeling a little crappy, but I feel better now. But yeah, anyway, that'll be fun. All right, let's talk about finished objects because I have 3 of them. You're seeing one on me and one on Martha, and then my another one is over on a blocking mat. You're not seeing Martha too well there. Let me tilt the camera a bit. There you go. Now you can see her. Now she's on screen. Okay, So what am I wearing? It's because it's kind of warm today that I thought I'd wear a t-shirt with my roti sleeveless top, which I'm wearing. I designed or planned the project. I didn't design it. It's by Irene Lynn. I planned the project, knowing that it was going to be like a vest for me to wear this fall and winter. I have knitted out of Handspun that I made from John Arbin Textiles. I bought this at their 20th anniversary, which was either 2020 or 2021. I don't remember which. I want to say it was 2020. And this was what they called their Mill Marl Dark. It's really, really pretty. This is the skein of it. It's like a really pretty chocolate brown with tones of red violet and blue violet in it. I don't know if you're really seeing that too well. It's like such a great, here's a swatch that I can show you up close instead of taking my vest off and showing you that up close. You can see like the shades, how the yarn sort of shaded. Yeah, I really love it. I ended up only spinning, I spun kind of what ended up being a chunky 2-ply, and it ended up, not chunky, but like chunky for me because I usually spin fingering weight with no problem. That's my typical yarn that I spin if I don't consciously try to do something differently. And I made this a 2-ply and it ended up being a DK weight instead of a fingering weight, which was fine, but it meant that from the 300 grams, which I thought I would get 1,200 yards or 1,000 yards, I ended up only getting 770 or almost 800. So I have about 200, I'd say, left here. 250 maybe, enough for a hat, which will be great. I'll make that into a hat for someone probably this holiday season. But yeah, I really love it. I've already worn it. I'm going to put a picture on screen of me wearing it. I did not make any modifications. I did make the longer version. I added an extra inch into the ribbing to get just a little bit more length. I've talked about this before, about my body type. I have a fairly narrow rib cage, but I have a big cup size. So I often don't have, like, so you can see on Martha, like this, she's my size. It just, like, the length of the short one would have ended like right here. Like my bra line is right there. So it would have ended like an inch below my bra line, which would not have been a very attractive look for me. You might like it, but not me. So I ended up doing the longer version. She has the pattern written for a short version and a long version. I think if you're like an ABC cup size, you're probably fine on the short version because you're going to get a lot more length in the front than I do, if that makes sense. Anyway, I really like it. It's really cozy and it's perfect in the fall. Just one note, the armholes are quite low. My bra line's right here, so if you are planning to make this as a sleeveless top, you'd want to be mindful of where you're putting your armholes for you. Like I know for me, I need that. If I'm doing a sleeveless top, my armholes need to start at 8 inches. So yeah, if you know that measurement, then you'll be able to modify that way if you need to. Okay, let's talk about what Martha's wearing, because I know this is like very exciting. It's bright and splashy and it's here in the background. Martha is wearing the Lace and Fade Boxy by Joji Locatelli. I made this with one mini skein set, one mohair skein, and one full skein that went with the mini skein set. So Pancake and Lulu had done this is her. She's a New Jersey indie dyer. She had done a series of yarn based on Squid Game, on the show Squid Game, when it came out in summer 2021. And she made full skeins and she made mini skein sets, and I think she did sparkle, non-sparkle, and she also did fleece, so for spinning. So I had bought the fleece, the mini skein, and she gifted me a full skein. So I had all of this. I've spun and knit the fleece. It's in a sweater that I made earlier this year, my Don't Look Up sweater, based on one of the sweaters that Jennifer Lawrence wore in the movie Don't Look Up. And you can go back episodes to see that sweater. That yarn was beautiful. It was these colors. Really came out great. But yeah, so I used the full skein for the top and the sleeves and the bottom trim, and I have this much left, so not much. I only used 4 of the 5 mini skeins, and I used mohair. This is how much I have left of the mohair. This is from a different company. It's from Teeny Button Studio, and it's typical mohair, 70-30. This was a happy accident. I wasn't planning to knit the lace and fade with this yarn. I didn't set out to find it. I was looking at, thinking about the sweater, and I was thinking that it would be fun to make it with mini skeins or 50-gram skeins, something, because you don't use all of this. If you buy the yarn to do a fade, like a 5-color fade, the way the pattern is written, you're not using all that much. You're using maybe a third or at most a half, 40% of the skein. So I was like, oh man, I would really rather, what can I knit from my stash? And it just so happened that I had this Teeny Button Studio mohair that was pretty close in colors to the Squid Game, and it worked. I wasn't sure it would, to be frank, and I was a little worried that this would not be something I'd want to wear and that I might be gifting it, but I actually love it. I've worn it already a couple times. It's just perfect. It's perfect. I just am so happy with it. I did make a couple mods from the pattern. This is my second one, so I made a neutral one. I made I used gray speckled yarn and gray tonal mohair for my first one, and I made it according to the way the pattern was written. I didn't make any modifications. I paid attention to all the notes. Hohi has a ton of notes in there about how to choose your size. I chose my size based on what she said. But because of what I said before about having a small rib cage and a big cup size, I really felt like it was a little oversized right up here. So I wanted to try doing a smaller size. So I went down 2 sizes. I made the size based on what my rib cage measurements are, and if I had a B cup instead of a D times 6 cup. So I really like it. It's fine. It looks great. I still think there's too much fabric across the top, even for this size, but I think it's more the nature of the sweater. I don't think the difference between this one, size 2, and size 4, really tiny difference in terms of fit. I would probably, I'd make the size 2 again in a heartbeat for myself, but when you're trying to choose your own size, just, don't get too hung up on which size. You can see each size doesn't grow the way a normal size pattern, or the way sizes work in a normal pattern. They don't grow in that way. There's actually less and less ease as you go down the sizes. So size 1 has a certain amount of ease. I don't know if it's the most, but it has a certain amount. But as it gets progressively smaller, as far as I recall, I think she says this on her journal. The sizes get progressively less ease, and anyway, I like it. I did do one extra section of mohair. The pattern is written for 4 sections in the front, and then you would do your rib here. But because I was using mini skeins, I wasn't getting the width that she called for. So she calls for a certain amount of width in the stripe. I forget what it is. Say it's 2 inches and I ended up with 1.5 inches. So overall I was going to be 2 inches short. So I just decided to add another mohair section and then do the bottom trim using the full skein because I had plenty. I was a little worried that I wouldn't have enough for the full skein to do the bottom rib. So I knit the sleeves first and then did the bottom trim. because that way I didn't have to worry. I could make it as long as I wanted in terms, dependent upon the amount of yarn I had left. So yeah, I really love it. I think it's really interesting, this speckled yarn, how it looks. I think you can see like the sleeves look kind of different, but I think it's just because it's a small circumference. So you're getting like what it would look like, I guess, if it were like a sock. It's really cool. I really love it. I would not hesitate to do this again with a mini skein set and a full skein that go together, and a mohair. I think the mohair could be pretty easy breezy. I do not think that this speckly mohair would work if I had speckly mini skeins. So this set just happened to work out that the mini skeins were tonals and the full skein was speckled. So I don't know. I would probably have gone with a solid mohair or a tonal mohair if these were speckled. But I think it works because you can see it looks kind of busy if you're just looking at the mohair and speckled together. I do have a picture of me wearing this. There are more on Ravelry. I posted on Instagram too, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, that's my second finished object. I have a third one. It is wet still. I know it's wet still because I just had it over here to film before my computer crashed. So I'm gonna go get it and show it to you. I finished the anchor sweater that I made for my son for his birthday. His birthday's Monday, so I got it just in the nick of time. Although I won't be seeing him this Monday. I'll be seeing him a week from Monday. And yeah, there it is. I made the size 5. I aimed for a 50-inch chest. This pattern was just a ball of anxiety. So I'm sorry about the light. Like, I hope the light, I hate when, I have a pet peeve, like when people that are doing these videos, apologize for things. Like, it is what it is, right? So I just want to say that the light is a little skewed because I have a really bright window right here. And I had the shade drawn, but then it seemed too dark, so I put it up. I do have studio lights that I'm just lazy about getting out, so I will get those if it doesn't seem to even out. But yeah, so if you're seeing like overexposure up here, but the sweater looks good, that's fine, right? Anyway, anchor sweater. I did do a lot of mods, and like I said, it was a ball of anxiety for me to knit it because it's really hard to knit for someone else when they're not nearby and you don't want them to know that you're making them something. So you don't want to ask a ton of questions like, how big is your bicep? And what's your neck to armpit measurement, so that like, if you're not able to ask those questions or measure an old sweater of theirs or something. The only thing I did to figure this out, I looked at a lot of pictures of him, but I also asked my daughter-in-law to tell me what size suit he's wearing so that I could use that measurement as his chest measurement, and then I would know how big to make the whole sweater. But one thing about this pattern, and it's probably just because it's an older pattern of Petite Knit. It's by Petite Knit. As you know, I feel like everyone knows that. She's such a prolific designer. She has a ton of patterns out, and she's been designing for a lot of years. But this is an older pattern of hers. It didn't have a spec. It had some measurements, but it wasn't a full spec. So I did not know what the yoke drop was until I got to like the third section of the rib, and I was like, I have to do 2 more rib sections. It's going to be really long. So I was, nervously measuring over and over the front neck down and just doing the math and figuring out that the yoke would be really probably too long for my son. My son is not like a big guy. He's pretty average. He's 5'8". yeah, so, and he's stocky. So, you know, I think the pattern was designed for a tall, thin person. Like a really tall person. Like over 6 feet tall. Because it's, you know, she probably made it for her boyfriend or husband. I don't know if they're married or what. I mean, my boyfriend's size is a sexy title. So I don't know if it was really for her boyfriend or whatever. But anyway, I did the math and figured out, I did the math myself in the pattern and figured out that she was intending the yoke, the front, you know, from neck to armpit to be a 14-inch finish. When I calculated my gauge, I realized that it was going to be 16 inches. So I quickly eliminated one of the 1x1 ribs, and I rapidly increased on the raglan to make it finish at 12 inches because I determined that even 14 was too big and baggy. It was just going to be too baggy. On my frame, like a 10-inch drop is the most I want. 8 inches is pretty much bang on, like right up under my armpit for like a fitted sleeveless garment. I want it to be 8 inches. But for most sweaters, I probably aim around that 9, you know, somewhere in that 8 to 10 zone, depending on the fit of the sweater. So you can imagine like 14 inches is a lot more length for a man who's only 2 inches taller than me. So I was just like, 14 is way too big. Let's aim for 12. I still think 12 is going to be pretty loose and like substantially loose for him. But I mean, I'll see. This will be a lesson. I'll have learned some lessons about what works on his size, on his body type. I ended up, because I did the rapid increases, by the time I got to 12 inches, I still had many more stitches left to add. So I ended up adding extra stitches under the armhole, and then to get to the full circumference I was supposed to have to knit in the round. And then I ended up casting on more armhole stitches when I did the sleeve. And the sleeves to me also seem quite big. Like this measurement here seemed really big. And she has you decrease pretty slowly and not as much as I did. I decreased down to 50 stitches for the cuff, which to me was a good size cuff for DK weight sweater. I also made the sleeves shorter because she had you making the sleeves like 20 inches long. That was going to be too long for my son. So I just made them shorter. And I also did many more increases than she had us do for the pattern. So I ended up like knitting the sleeve, following the pattern, and then ripping it back out again, and then re-knitting with more rapid decreases to get, you know, more to the sleeve shape that I wanted for him. So I think it's okay. I also made it shorter. She has you making it the full body length from shoulder to hem, 30 inches or 32 inches, something like that, which is really, really long. Like, again, if you're knitting for a guy that's 6 feet or taller, you probably need that length. But for an average guy, 5'10", 5'8", I think I finished off about 28 inches, 27.5 inches. So we'll see. I'll see if that's a good length for him. But if not, I have plenty of extra yarn, so I can go ahead and make that longer for him when I see him next week. The wool is stone wool. It's a division of Quince & Co. If you know Quince & Co. as a yarn company. They're in Saco, Maine, which is right outside of Portland. They do not have a shop though, because I've been thinking about stopping by because it's on my way. But it is all American milled, dyed, and spun. Spun in Hudson Valley, dyed in the American Northeast. I don't know what that means. The Northeast is a pretty big region. I don't know where the sheep are from either, but I assume they're American. So, because it says American Romney and Merino. It's a DK weight. They have a few lines, the stone wool. I've used their Cormo before. It's really nice. I thought that this gray, I said this last time on my last episode, that it was naturally dark gray, sheep colored, but it's not. It's actually dyed. I didn't know that until I It might be just I overlooked it. I just assumed it was natural. I didn't know it was dyed until I was soaking it. The yarn has a lot of spinning oil in it. You can smell it and also feel it. It feels kind of slick. So I'm really curious to see how I think that sweater is going to be fuzzy by the time it dries. But when I was soaking it last night, the water was kind of like dishwater dirty at first, and then it turned a pale purple, which told me there was dye in it. So that's fine. It's totally fine. I think actually dye is more stable than natural colored, because natural colors will fade if you're out in the sun a lot. Dye does too, but dye is a little more stable, I think, than natural sheep wool. I think. Now watch, someone will give me that as a myth. And I'll need to figure that out. I'm not positive, but I think. I haven't done the research exactly. So those are my finished objects. You'll be glad to know I shaved 10 minutes off of what I had before. I mean, I probably would have just had a lot more edits. Because this is where I was when the lights went out. All right. Finished object. Sorry. Works in progress. I think I showed this last time. I've been working on a set of DK weight socks using the Drea Renee Knits Everyday Sock Pattern by Andrea Mowry. I modified her fingering weight sock pattern to be a DK weight. And guess what? This week, yesterday in fact, she came out with a DK weight version of this. So now there's a pattern. So those of you who are interested in making the DK weight version of her DRK everyday sock pattern, it's out and it's called Bear Paw. I bought it so that I can now migrate all my DK weight sock patterns to, I can now label them as the Bear Paw sock. And yeah. Maybe I even contributed a little bit unbeknownst to me, because I keep careful notes about what I do without giving the pattern away, but I did give my cast-ons. She has you cast on, the number needs to be divisible by 8, I think. I think it's 8. There's a certain divisible amount that she works from, which I ignore. I do divisible by 4. So I don't have exactly, I'm not doing exactly the stitch counts that she has done, but pretty close. I'm happy that there's a pattern out now, mostly for myself, but also for you all. So then when I'm saying, hey, this is a pattern I hacked, instead I can say, hey, this is actually a pattern you can buy yourself and follow if you're interested. But yeah, this is a women's size 8 sock size. This is the first of a pair. Getting there. I have about another 4 inches of the leg to do. It's if you're not familiar with the pattern, it's a Flegel heel toe up sock, where you do a Turkish cast on. So there's no going back and seaming at all, and the knitting of the heel, like doing this instep increase and the heel, is pretty seamless. Like you're just doing it through a series of short rows, increases, decreases, short rows. It's I love it. There's no, on a heel flap sock, I always get to the flap, whether I'm doing toe up or leg down, and I end up pausing at the flap. Because I always think of that as like, oh, this is the fiddly bit. I need like a solid hour to sit in front of the TV or whatever, to sit and work on it. So I'll stop knitting it because I'm waiting for that time to become available. And yeah, it's hard. It's hard to get it. Okay, I don't have the tag on this yarn. I don't think it's in there. Okay, well, anyway, this yarn is 100% BFL superwash by The Corner of Craft, or you might know her as, oh my gosh, it just went out of my head. She's got a YouTube channel. I'm going to put it right on screen because I don't remember right now. Her name is Hannah. I'm pretty sure it's Hannah, The Corner of Craft. Yeah, she makes stitch markers, but she dyes yarn too. Oh, these are called, oh crap. Oh my god, I'm totally blanking on it. Corner of Craft is her stitch marks. stitch markers. Oh, all right. Forget it. I'm going to just put it on screen. The yarn line is called something else. Corner of Craft is who she is on YouTube, and the yarn line is called something else. I don't remember. But this color is called cold resistance. So I'm knitting socks of cold resistance. Pretty cute, huh? I'm hoping there's a little extra that I can make a hat for Julie, for my granddaughter, who is 2, who just turned 2. I have some new cast-ons. This first one won't be a surprise. I am working on the Funfetti by Sylvia Cherry Watts, or Watts Cherry, Sylvia Cherry Watts. I'll put a picture on screen of the sweater. It's from Lana magazine. And here's where I'm at. It is a bottom-up sweater. It is kind of a boxy cut with I think it's got a drop shoulder. I don't think that's a shape shoulder, but it might have a little bit of cap shaping. You're meant to knit it in pieces, so bottom up and in pieces. What is this with these designers designing these bottom up sweaters? I'm knitting it in the round. I just went ahead and put them all together, and I just gave myself a stitch marker for the side seam in case there was, when I get to the armhole, it'll be pretty easy to figure out. So I'll knit in the round until I get to this part here where I'm splitting for the armhole, and then I will knit flat. I don't have any tension problems with my purling, so my tension is indistinguishable from knitting in the round to knitting flat. I've been knitting a long time, like 40 years. So I have a pretty even tension with that. So yeah. I talked about the colors and how I came about picking them in my last episode, and I think I showed you a swatch. So now I've got this sweater, but I really love it. I want to get it done so I can wear it ASAP. The yarn, this fabric is just amazing. The yarn I'm using is by, here, I have it here, by Lamb and the Kid, and is it the Lamb and Kid? Lamb and Kid, and it's her Todd base. It's a cashmere yak combo, which means it's going to be very drapey and not have a lot of resilience the way that wool does. So, and that's fine. Like, I'm fine with that. This is what I have left of the orange. Should be enough for the cuffs and collar, I think. It's just, you're supposed to just use one skein for the, oh crap, I just dropped a whole bunch of stitches. You're supposed to just use one skein for the collar and cuffs and bottom, and then there we go, all done. I know, it gives me anxiety when that happens to other people. And then you're supposed to you need 3 skeins for the other colors. And so far, I've only used one skein of each so far, and I've got about 10 inches or so here, and I think I have to keep going for another 2 or 4 inches. I don't remember. I think it's 2. But I might modify again because of the big cup size. I need a little more fabric in the front than a B or C cup. I wish I was a B cup. I actually wish I was flat chested. It would be lovely. Guess the grass is always greener though, right? Yes. Would be lovely. Anyway, moving on. So yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm knitting all these DK weight sweaters, and DK weight knit a heck of a lot faster than fingering weight. I mean, this monster, it's like 400 stitches or 4 and change in the round. It's a lot of stitches. So, but it didn't seem like it went that, I mean, because you're stopping and changing, you're doing changing what you're knitting. It doesn't feel as long as it probably was. Okay, another new cast on. This has been on my knit list for a long time. I don't have a lot to show you in terms of what the sweater will look like, but this is a Ching fiber. It's her melted baby Surrey base, which is a DK weight fuzzy yarn that is alpaca. Sorry, here it is. It is alpaca. I cannot read it. I want to say it's alpaca and wool. It might have a dash of silk in it. I will put it on screen if I'm wrong. But it's kind of like a brushed yarn that's spun onto a core. So you get like these like thick and thin moments, which I think you can kind of see there. Yeah, so I've had this yarn in my stash. I think this sweater, knitting this sweater, has been on my list for maybe 2 years or a year and a half. This is a sweater of my own design. It's called the Saucy Surrey bomber jacket. It is so cute, and bomber jackets are in. I have made 2 of these already. The pattern, you can find it on Ravelry. You can buy it from me directly. If you want to buy it from me directly, just reach out on one of my DMs, like either DM on Instagram, or you can even just put a message in and I'll get in touch with you. If you're not on Ravelry, I mean, it's on Ravelry too. The pattern is, I designed it and it got really well tested in 2020. It does have a zipper, but I have tutorials here on YouTube telling you can totally I hand sewed. I'm a sewist, like a long-time sewist. I've been sewing since I was 8 years old. You hand stitch this though. So you just do a series of, you do back stitches. If you know your hand stitches pretty well, you just do back stitches to put in a separating zipper. It's really easy. It's not scary at all. So yeah, I think it's a good pattern. I just want to say too, like a lot of the patterns that I have released don't have a lot of project. I've said this before. I haven't released a pattern in a while because I just I have a job. I have a full-time job and I don't need the money. So it's not about the money for me. Whenever I design a pattern, I'm always designing it for me. I'm not designing it to make money. So I designed this pattern for me, and it got quite a lot of attention and I got a lot of testers. But when it came to putting a project page on Ravelry, not very many people did that. So you won't see a lot of projects, but it has been well tested and it's a really well written pattern, I think. But yeah, try it yourself and see. I'll share. I have another sweater's quantity of this yarn that I'm planning to make another one of these for. This is going to be a gift for someone in my family. And the other one might be a gift too, but I think I'm going to keep it. I'll make that after Christmas. So yeah, I'm chugging along on this to get this done for Christmas. So the colorway is called Black Hair. Yeah, Black Hair. And I told you it was Ching, right? Ching fiber. These are her old labels that she's gone through so many label reiterations, but these are the ones that are really hard to read. But I love this dyer. I have been buying from her since I found out about her, which was sometime in like 2018 or so. You do put the collar and cuffs with this sweater are made out of a fingering weight yarn, and I haven't quite determined which fingering weight yarn I'm going to use. I did cake one, but I'm not happy with it. It has a lot of white in it, I think. It'll be okay, but I want to knit a little more. I think I'm going to knit more of the body, and right now I'm knitting the back. And then when I'm done knitting the back, you come back and cast on the front on the shoulder, like off the shoulder, and then do the fronts, and then you knit them both until you get to the armhole. You get done with the armhole, then you knit in the round, or not, sorry, not in the round, back and forth, because it is open. So sorry about that. So you are knitting back and forth. There is the purling aspect on this jacket, just because I didn't want to steek it. And I don't mind purling. It's fine. Yeah, so I'm gonna knit more of it until I get more of the fabric, and then I'm gonna pull out some of the 50 gram or bigger skeins I have and figure out what's the best color, because it's kind of a rainbow. Like, I was thinking of it as like a red, but it's got kind of a rainbow effect to it. There's a lot of blue and green in it as well. So we'll see how that goes. But it should be really nice and cozy. Out of the ones I've knit already, I kept one, and I love wearing it, but the color is really bad for me. It like just doesn't do me any favors. So, but it is super cozy. So I kind of wear it as like a bed jacket. Like, I wear it around the house before, like when I get up, before I get dressed, and then maybe towards the end of the evening when I'm getting ready for bed, but I want an extra layer. So yeah, have a few other plans for cast-ons, things. I have a sweater I want to make for Julie, and I have other plans in the works. We'll see what comes of it. I do have a little bit of spinning to share with you. Wait, let me start with these. I think I showed you this a couple episodes ago. I made a bulky 2-ply out of 2 bats that I had, that, you know, they were made from different dyers. So it's partly, this is half Green Goat Ranch, half Stitched Together Studio, old bats that I had from 2020 or before, maybe even 2019. I started to spin in 2019, so it's not older than that. But and I ended up with a little extra of the Green Goat Ranch, so I made a mini skein. That's a little bit thinner than this. What I've learned for my own self is that bats tend to spin up chunkier, so this is like kind of a worsted to Aran weight. It'll make a nice hat or cowl or something like that. It's pretty and bright. Yeah, I prefer dealing with spinning roving, because I can spin a little thinner. I'm more interested in spinning what I'm going to knit with, and I knit with fingering weight the most, and probably DK second. So the bulkier weights I tend not to use too much. I'm saying that, but wait, because I have something bulkier to show you that I just bought. Ooh. Okay, more spinning. I spun up 2 skeins of two of the roving that I got from Kim Dye's Yarn. So I just bought these very recently. She had made a special colorway for this fall called Seasons Change, and it is 75% BFL, 25% Tussa Silk. So it's really beautiful. I decided to spin it in a 3-ply fractal. So 3-ply means like, or fractal means when you do a 2 or 3 or 4-ply, you are basically taking the entire length of the roving and you're stripping it down. If you're doing a 3-ply, you would strip it down in thirds first, and then you're spinning end to end for one. So this will be 1 skein or 1 bobbin, end to end, just straight through. For the second one, you're splitting it in 2. So I would take this, since this is 1/3 of the roving braid, and then I would take that third and split it in 2 for the second bobbin, and the third bobbin would then be split into, these strips would be split into 4. When you're getting that thin, it gets a little messy. So the last bobbin could be more bits than 4, and that is certainly what happened with these 2 skeins. My third bobbin ended up being like bits and pieces, probably more than 4, but still, it's fine. So I got 2 skeins done. This is one of them. They're really, really gorgeous. They were such a fun spin. It did spin up bulkier than I thought. I thought with that silk percentage, I was going to end up with a fingering weight, even though it was a 3-ply. 2-ply is a slam dunk fingering or sport weight for me. 3-ply DK to sport is probably more like what it is. But this one actually spun up even thicker than that. Here's my second skein. I thought it would be fun to see it open. These are about 200 yards each, and they are over 100 grams. So I'm guessing that's like a worsted. So I ended up with a worsted, which is a bit of a bummer because it's not a sweater's quantity. But the other thing that's a bit of a bummer for me is that these are not my colors. These are not going to look good on me. I just knew when I saw it starting to, when I was plying it, I was like, no. They're just a little too, dark. They're going to wash me out and make me look pale and sallow. So these are going to be better for someone else, like a gift, either gifting the yarn or gifting the knit. So yeah. You may have opportunity to buy them. I stay tuned into the next year because I am doing the Comfort and Joy boxes, and I'm thinking about doing, which will be an intentional curated box of handspun yarn, with the option to purchase mystery skeins from my stash of handspun. That's what I'm thinking right now. But I'll have more details in the new year, like Feb, March, somewhere around there, when I have all the makers lined up, because it's gonna be epic. You're not gonna want to miss it. I think I have the dyer lined up, I have the ceramic artist lined up. I have to do a little more work. I got the tags already because I just ordered them. I'm excited. It'll be good. It's gonna be good. Stay tuned. Okay, I do have a stash. I know I've been on a low buy year. It's actually been great. I can't wait to talk to you about my low buy year in December or January. Probably January. It'll probably be my New Year episode in January, where I'll do I usually do a recap of what I knit and how much yarn I used up and how much versus how much yarn I spun and how much yarn I purchased. And so far, I think I'm doing pretty good. I'm not doing as well as I hoped, but it's better than how I did in 2021, and certainly way better than 2020. But I'm going to give you the full recap of all of that. Nevertheless, I did make one more purchase of yarn, and you're going to understand why in a moment when I explain what it is. I bought from La Bien-Aimée, I bought some of her Winsley worsted base. This is similar to her Corey worsted base, though that's a gray base and this is a white base. So it really takes the colors in a really intense, beautiful way. I mean, this is not showing on screen as bright as it actually is. It's a very bright green. It's her colorway Lush, which you can find in her indie dyed yarn as well. I really, really wanted a green sweater, so I bought a sweater's quantity of this, and I've been wanting a green sweater for a while. I actually have a sweater that's green, this shade of green, that's commercial made, and it's a crop sweater from when crop sweaters were hot, I don't know, a decade ago. So I have it, and I wore it recently, but I was wishing for a certain sort of oversized sweater, and just checking the time. So I was wishing for a certain oversized sweater, a certain type, like a drop shoulder, boxy fit. So I got the yarn. I ordered the yarn. Wait, before I tell you about the sweater, let me tell you why I bought the yarn. I bought the yarn last weekend because Amy did a 20% off, free shipping. Free worldwide shipping. So it normally costs $20 or $25 to ship yarn from Paris to me here in New Jersey. I don't know how much it costs for you. Maybe it's same, maybe it's a little less. And the price of the yarn, when you translate or when you see the dollar against euro, it can be like a $40 skein of yarn, plus you're spending another $20, $25 to ship it. So it's really expensive. And yes, if you buy more, it's that shipping is amortized across those skeins. But let me tell you what happened recently. The dollar is doing very well against euro. In fact, for the first time in ages, the euro slipped just under a 1-to-1. So you're getting like 97 euro to $1. So it's strong now. And the thing is, like, yes, I can buy La Bien-Aimée yarn here in the US from her stockist, because she's got a lot of them. And I can order it and have it shipped, but it's like $35, $36, $38 a skein. It's only 30 euro from her right now, this particular one. So I actually saved $50 with the free ship and paying the 1-to-1 dollar to euro. So it was a really good deal. So I did not want to pass it up, and I wanted a green sweater. So I just said, yes, I'm doing this. So I did it. I'm so happy. I really want to cast this on right away, but I'm going to probably hold off and cast on Julie's Christmas present, my granddaughter's Christmas sweater first, and then go and work on this. We'll see. But yeah, I'm so happy. So yeah, so the yarn arrived, and over the past few days, I've been sort of looking for a sweater, an appropriate sweater design, thinking that, if I can't get what I like, I'll design it, but I wanted something that was solid and had some sort of texture and had, the shape I wanted, like a drop shoulder, boxy shape, kind of longer. By the way, longer sweaters, like crop, is not really going to hang around too much longer, I don't think. At least if you look at what's happening on the runways. I haven't talked about this in a long while, but I used to be a fashion designer on 7th Avenue. I worked for a really big fashion house. And so tracking trends is something that I did for a living. So in looking at the trends, I don't track trends all the time now. I look occasionally, but I've been very interested in the sheer amount of knitwear that's gone down the runways lately, the last couple years, I'd say. So this year, I did a Pinterest idea board to just kind of help me kind of collate all of the things I was seeing. I'm going to put the link in the description box to my Pinterest board if you're interested. So I called it Fall 2023 because usually what goes down the runways and lands in shops that are high-end labels, so where you're paying like $1,400, $1,500, $1,600 for a sweater, or $2,000 for a sweater, those high-end labels, the style types, the design lines, the colors, the stitches that you're seeing in those sweaters will work their way down to lower labels the next year. So I called the board Fall 2023. I'm going to let you look at it. I am going to make it available for a couple weeks, and then I'm going to probably make it private again because I can share with you though all the time if you want, but you'll need to let me know on Pinterest what your username is so I can then share that with you. I don't mind sharing it with you all, my viewers, but I don't want to share it with the general public for very long. And I think what I need to do to make it available to you all who I don't know, and I don't know your Pinterest usernames and such, is make it available to the public. So I'm going to do that for a very short window, and then I'm going to hide it again so that because it's really just for my own use. It's not for anything else. But I want to share with you some of the things I'm seeing, because I'm seeing a lot of bright colors and I'm seeing a lot of slouchy fits. So fitted is out, slouchy, big patterns, big bold patterns, big bold colors are coming. Now, I can say that, but us hand knitters, we might never make it to knitting those styles because we can be very stubborn. We can be very stubborn with what we decide we're going to knit. And we might just keep doing round yoke color work sweaters until, the cows come home, I guess, like forever and ever, ignoring all fashion. So, and that's true actually, not just of the hand knitting industry, but it's also true of the of us in general as consumers. Like, we could totally reject a new style. I've seen it happen over and over and over. And then we can also embrace a style that never came through the trends, like starting at the high end, going down that way. There's also, things also go upward. So start at street level and go up. So that happens again and again. But I got very excited about some of the things I saw and some of the colors, and very inspired. I have like a design idea that I'm sort of mulling over, and I want to have this sweater ready by Vogue Knitting New York in February. So I just have to, I'm sourcing the yarn now. I'm trying to figure out what kind of yarn I want to use. I want a fuzzy base for it. But nevertheless, take a look if you like. Let me know in the comments below if you're... If you looked and what you thought and how you reacted to it. It's kind of a hodgepodge of things that I saw. There's a couple crochet garments on there that I just threw on there, not because I thought they were trend worthy, but more because I just wanted to remember them in case I want to make a crochet thing. But crochet is also having a moment. Though I think there's only 2 crochet designs on there. And they're also, like, the lower down on the board are the older images. So the more recent images are towards the top. I also threw on all of the knitwear that Taylor Swift wore in her anti-hero video, because those were cool and interesting to me and seem to kind of go with some of the other trends that I'm seeing. And of course they're probably high end because she makes $1 bajillion. So yeah, so I thought that would be exciting and fun, and you'll kind of get the idea of how I, you know, sort of was inspired to make this green, this really bright green, chunky, oversized drop shoulder sweater. I did find a pattern. It is called, I want to say it's called Word. I'm going to pop it on screen now, but it is exactly what I'm looking for. It's a solid sweater. It's the perfect silhouette. And it has a certain amount of texture on the body and on the sleeves. It is perfect. So I will be making that sweater out of this yarn soon. And hopefully I'll show it to you soon. I have a little bit more left to talk to you about, so I hope you're not too worn out yet. I have been doing exploring woolly knits. I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the camera. I am trying to queue up the question. So I have a form down below in the description box, which you can fill out and tell me a woolly myth that you would like me to explore. We've been exploring them the last few episodes, the past few months. It's been really fun for me. I hope it's been enjoyable for you too. I've learned some things. I hope you're learning some things. So I want to share this question that came from Genesis. The question is, why is it that we're told that you can't knit frogged yarn prior to soaking it because the textured knitted fabric would make for uneven stitches, but no one says to soak yarn from sock blanks prior to knitting it? So I think what Genesis is asking is, she's identifying this inconsistency in practices, but I think the real question behind that question is, do you have to soak yarn that you frogged or from a sock blank? Because it's usually kinked. Do you have to soak it to get it back to being smooth and straight before you knit it? I dug around a lot on this question, and I didn't find any real true science on it, but I found a lot of experts who were weighing in on this topic. And you might not be surprised to know that actually with those sock blanks, you probably should soak that too. But I also think it's fine if you don't soak it at all, or if you don't re-soak a frogged sweater. But the answer too, I found, became more complicated when you start talking about different fiber types. So if we stick with wool, because again, this is exploring woolly myths, so we're talking about wool. I'll touch on the other fibers in a minute. Wool is very, very resilient, and when you, so you can stretch wool out. You could take a wool strand and stretch it. It'll stretch to a certain amount, and then you let it go and it'll go back. So it has memory and has a lot of resilience. Most wool, like wool, true wool, like from a sheep wool. Fibers like cashmere, yak, silk, those react differently. Acrylic would react differently. Cotton reacts differently. Cotton has the least amount of resilience out of all those. You pull it out and it stays. It doesn't even spring back. That's why if you've ever worn cotton athletic socks, they stretch out over time and they just never go back. And those are the ones that like keep slipping down into your shoe when you wear them when they get a little old. It's because they have cotton has no resiliency. That's why they usually knit it with an elastic thread. Wool has a lot of resiliency though, and it's really, really good with that. It has excellent memory. It remembers how it used to be when it was growing on the animal, and it wants to be that shape, that like little curly shape. And we take advantage of that little curly shape, that little corkscrew, by spinning it into further corkscrew around itself, around strands of itself, and that makes for a really strong cord or fiber. So like this thread here, like this is, or this yarn here. So it's really strong, and yeah, there's a little give there, and I could stretch this. If I wanted it to stay stretched out, I would wet it, and it would stay in that shape, and it would lose it a little bit. If I really pulled it taut and wet it, pulled it taut and pinned it in place, it would pretty much stay there. But, you know, on the other hand, so what happens then when you knit it into a fabric and then you frog it, you get that like kink. Do I have something I can unfrog? Not really. You get that like kind of the loops that you're making as you're knitting, you get that in the yarn. So it'll be like a wave. I have a picture, actually, I'll put on screen of what I'm talking about, of some reskeined yarn that was not soaked. And it has like the loops in it from the knitting. If it's wool and you frog something, and you remake it into a cake, or you remake it into a skein, or you just make it into a ball, those loops are already going to get mitigated by that process. So it won't be smooth like this skein is, but it won't be nearly as rippled as it would be over time. Like, so if you frog something, put it in a cake, put it down on a shelf or in a bag or stored it for a little while, and then went and got it out couple months later, it's not going to be nearly as kinked as it would be. Of course, you can get rid of those kinks completely by soaking it. But I think Genesis is also asking, do you have to? No. No, you don't. You do not have to. It will not change your fabric that much. It will change your fabric more drastically if you're an inexperienced knitter. I think this is a case of there being like on the spectrum of, is it a problem for you or not? They are speaking from a cautious perspective of, hey, for new knitters, people who don't quite have their tension right or maybe more likely to make mistakes, it's going to be better for you if you soak it and get it to be straight again. But for more experienced knitters, probably doesn't matter. I've never soaked a frogged yarn. Never. I usually frog it, recake it, store it away until I'm ready to do something with it. There have been times where I've knit something, frogged it, like the anchor sweater. I knit the sleeve twice. So I knit the sleeve the way she described in the pattern, and then I frogged it and reknit it. I didn't stop and soak it. I just frogged it out. It was a little wiggly, but it wasn't as kinked as it would have been if I had soaked it. So when you put wool in water, you're saying to the wool, I want you to be this shape and stay there. That's how wool is manipulated, using water. Using heat usually and water. So heat and steam. Heat, steam, or something. That's where you're telling wool, get in this position and don't move. Acrylic, on the other hand, has pretty embedded memory as well. And it is not manipulated by water, which is why it makes a great yarn for like things that are going to be washed all the time, like a dog blanket or baby knits even. Like it's a popular yarn to use for baby knits because it could take a beating in the washing machine. The reason it can take a beating in the washing machine is because water doesn't do anything to it. It won't change the shape. It won't change anything. But what does change acrylic is heat. So hot water would be a problem, a potential problem. So if you have some kinky frogged acrylic yarn, try heat. Just heat. You can probably even use dry heat. You don't need water. But make sure if you do use water that you're using hot water. Cotton, good luck. Good luck with cotton. Cotton just does not spring back. Also wool will go back to what it wants to be if you don't do any pinning or tugging. So if you just wash it, wet it, and let it dry and it's in the shape that it would like to be, like in a lump or pile or whatever, it'll just be its own, it'll go back to where its original form, as close as it can get. I'm of course like coiled into a strand as yarn, it will, there's resistance in that twist, right? So that twist is gonna shape it somehow, but it's going to try its best to get back to that original form. I hope that helps. I hope I made sense. So I'm basically saying, Genesis, if you're an experienced knitter, you probably don't ever have to soak any frogged or knitted yarn that you're going to reknit if you don't want to. I would argue that the tension, the issue with uneven stitches comes from tension. So if you're an experienced knitter, you're gonna, whatever your fingers do as you're knitting, you're gonna pull the yarn into a tug, and you're gonna know it's gonna feel different on your fingers if they're slack. So the slack isn't gonna cause you trouble in terms of your uneven stitches. The fabric you make from frogged yarn is going to look a little weird until you soak it, and then it's going to look fine. But I would be skeptical of someone telling an experienced knitter that their gauge is going to be different if they use frogged yarn versus using the exact same yarn that had never been frogged. I think your gauge is going to be pretty similar if you're an experienced knitter, like indistinguishably similar. If you're an inexperienced knitter, you may not be as skillful at feeling the difference in the tension of the yarn as you're knitting. The only exception I can think of is if it was knitted really, really tight, like really tight, to the point where you're really pulling that strand taut, and then it had been soaked. So now that you frogged it, it might still be in that stretch, and then it may shrink. Like your gauge might actually be smaller with that yarn. But that's so unusual. Like I don't think that happens too frequently with knitting or knitters. Certainly not with sock blanks, because those are not knit tight. Those are knit at a nice gauge for their particular weight. So I hope that helps. There wasn't too much data to really look at for that. I do really like to look at data. It was rather just experts the experts mostly say everyone should soak it. It's good practice, but maybe you just don't want to spend the time. I think you're fine. You're fine. All right. That's all I got for you, aside from a quick ending here. Quick little, here's what's coming here on the channel. So I will next broadcast on or be recording an episode probably on November 30th through like December 1, somewhere around there. And that's going to start Vlogmas. Last year, I've done Vlogmas for a few years in a row. Last year I did a different modality. Instead of doing an everyday episode, which can be a little bit tedious for me to be editing and also for you all to watch, I did once a week Vlogmas. So I'm going to do that again. I hope to get the first episode out by November 1, November 30th or December 1st, like right around that Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend to Monday. It might not get out until Monday. I'll probably do the recording Sunday, but I don't know if I'll have time to edit. We'll see. And what you can expect in those, there will be not this style of me sitting and talking with you in this regular format. Instead, it will be a lot more footage that I've taken using my cell phone camera, and it will be footage of anything Christmassy and knitting related, and maybe a little bit of the Whiskey and Jen thrown in there too. I'll be making at least 4 episodes, maybe 5. I have to just look. I think it ends up being 4 if it's every Sunday. I'm going to aim to release them every Saturday or Sunday of December. And I don't know if I'm going to come back with a full episode again. I'll probably have 1 full episode in there. I just don't know where it will land. And then I will have a full episode after the holidays. That will be my recap. Here's what's happened this year kind of thing, and here's what I'm looking forward to next year style episode. So yeah, so there's going to be some different stuff coming on the channel in the month of December to celebrate the holiday season. And in the first episode, it tends to be the longest because I do a lot of setup stuff. So you get a lot of footage of me decorating and setting up my advents and my tree and that type of stuff, so it could be fun. And I do have a couple weekends away planned, so there'll be some footage of those weekends and stuff like that. And then of course all the wildlife that I see in my normal day-to-day and outdoors type stuff. So I hope you'll enjoy and look forward to that, and I will see you again then in, I think it's 2 weeks. Yes, I'll see you again in 2 weeks with my first Vlogmas. Bye.